There you are in the middle of an interview for a new job, or maybe you are trying to take on a new client. You're talking about all the cool stuff you're going to do for them, and then all of a sudden they're like, you know what, I really think that will work. Can you tell me more about how you've done that for people in the past? And all of a sudden you're standing there and you're like, crap, you know what, maybe I don't know as much as I told this dude that I know. Hi, I'm William James, and this is the wilderness. This is probably one of my most remote shoots yet. Here I'm somewhere halfway between Big Creek Campground over here and Mount Sterling and the fire tower over there. But as we're talking about this, I want to kind of go on an experience that I had. I know some of you guys know already that I've done off-roading pretty much my whole adult life. It's one of my hobbies, one of the things I like to do the most. And in the idea of faking it till you make it, imposter syndrome, and things of that nature, there's pros and cons to it, right? There are things that you need to just get into and start, but there's also something to be said for actually being prepared and having experience. But I think the fake it till you make it part comes in at the fact that you need to do it at least once for someone you've never done it before you get experience, right? You prepare yourself as much as possible with book learning or whatever, but at the end of the day, real experience comes from experience, hands-on. I know with my education and my background and the things that I do for a living right now, week in, week out, the things that I do all came from either observing someone else who I knew or from hands-on experience. Almost nothing came from like college and all those courses. Not to say it's not important, because there is a place for it. It kind of teaches you to study and to discipline yourself. It kind of shows people that you're willing to commit to something and follow through, which essentially is all college is, in my opinion. In most cases, obviously doctors need to go to school and all that, but you do need to have hands-on experience. Even a doctor goes through 8 years of education. Throughout that time, they are doing practicums and they are learning behind somebody else, right? And as I said, in my off-road life back in the day, I just loved the idea of overlanding off-road and building big rigs with big tires and all that cool stuff. But I lived in Florida. The most off-road that I did was probably the beach and some sandy trails or whatever, right? And I built a community around the vehicle I had on Facebook at the time, and it got up to a couple thousand people on it, and we were doing good. There's me and a couple other administrators on there, and we started kind of this product, this brand, if you will, for our type of Jeeps and the other vehicles that were similar to ours. So we went through all this, and I talked it up. We got this meet together at a off-road park in North Carolina called Uwharrie. I made this trek all the way up to Uwharrie, and all this time, you know, we're promoting it and we're sending stuff out, and we're like, this is going to be great. You guys need to show up. And we had prizes, we had sponsors, we had all this stuff, right? We had made a real event out of it. We leave the meeting place and drive out into the park, and I came to a place called Daniel, and we went up the backside, not the front side, but even the backside has a big rock face on it. And if you've done it before, it's not that big of a deal. But I'm sitting next in line at the bottom, and it hits me just like boom, out of nowhere. Bro, I have never done anything like this in my life. I talked to Big Game. We did all this stuff. We promoted. I literally drove across 3 states or whatever to get to this meet, and having all this stuff ready to go. And when it came time to do it, I realized, holy crap, I don't know what I'm doing. In my case, I was in line. I wasn't backing out. It's kind of positive peer pressure at that point. Like, ain't no way I'm backing out. I just don't even know what I'm doing. I guess I'm going to put it in 4 low and hope for the best. And I kind of hit the gas a little too hard and bounced up the rock, which was not safe. But I made it, right? And I made it and finally got up. And then after that point, every other challenge from then was just another thing to overcome. Like, there was a way to do it. Driving off-road taught me, no matter how scary an obstacle looks, most of the time, it's not always true, but most of the time, no matter how scary it is, how big the rock is, how big the ravine is, how off-kiltered you're going to end up being when you're trying to do it, there's always a way. There's a line, we call it. You have to find your line through the obstacle. And and once you find that, you take it nice, you take it slow most of the time, and you find your way out. And I've come up against so many obstacles in my off-road life that look like, holy crap, how in the world is this going to work? Point is, yes, you should prepare. And I read a lot of stuff. I knew a lot of things. I listened to other people, and I set this whole thing up with my friend, and we had this big event, right? At the time when it was necessary for me to actually show what I could do, I almost had the moment of, I can't do this. Forging ahead and just doing it anyways. built momentum so that next time that same issue came up, I was able to do it. When it comes to imposter syndrome, sometimes you feel like, you know, man, I don't know if I can really do this. I've never actually done this for a client like what I'm telling this client I can do. I have experience in other ways. Maybe I've done it partially for a company, but never on my own or whatever it might be. You have fears, you have doubts, you have things that are in your way, and you're like, man, how in the world am I going to do this? How am I going to convince this dude that I can do this? Reality is, you'll never know until you take that lead. And you need to prepare, you need to read, you need to follow other people who are already doing it. You need to copy in some little way. I hate copying anything. That's just been my thing my whole life. I always want to be different. I don't want to copy anybody. In some cases, it's not possible to get started in something you've never done before without copying something. You copy those things, you work your way through it, but when it comes time to do it, you're going to have to jump in and just say, you know what, this has to happen. I got to do this. I got to forge ahead. I might break an axle. I might, you know, pop a tire. I may not do it exactly right. In my case, I might flip my vehicle over. And I have almost flipped my vehicle over because I got real comfortable with any obstacle just being, you know, whatever. And that might not be super safe. But in life, you're just going to have to overcome those obstacles and understand, as I said this past week, obstacles by definition lift you higher because you have to climb over them. Steps on a stairway, rungs on a ladder, they are all obstacles that you use to get from where you are to where you want to be. And you're going to have to, at some point, say, you know what, I don't know if I've done this necessarily before for somebody, but I'm going to just jump in and try it. I'm going to see what happens. And you wouldn't have any desire to go after that if you didn't have some ability in you. You kind of follow your abilities and your passions, even if you don't know that you have them yet. So in my case, obviously things worked out. I don't suggest that you just say, you know, figure out whatever makes $1 million and you just pick some random thing out of the air that you've literally have no idea about. But if you do have a skill, you've begun to learn it, you begin to hone it, you're following other people, you're learning from them, and or maybe you do it for a job and you want to do it freelance and you just never done it. I mean, you will have to take the leap. And don't be afraid to do it. It's gonna look scary because it is. You've never been there before. And as I said in another tweet, fear is just an indicator that says we are approaching new territory. Sometimes there is a real fear. A bear walks up the trail right now. There's gonna be a little bit of fear. It's not a lot. Black bears around here are not that, you know, crazy. But I'm not gonna go down there and smack it in the head and want to have a fist fight with it, right? So there are some things fear tells us that is true. We shouldn't, you know, go smack bears in the face. But there are other things that fear simply is telling you, hey, you haven't been there before, so make sure you're on your A game. That's what the fear of imposter syndrome really is. It's really just yourself telling you, look, man, you've never been here before, you haven't done this, so make sure you're on your A game. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, love you guys, and we'll see you next time.